Hello, we are right back in the booth here after reading our next pillar within the perception section of The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Just as a quick recap, we have covered the pillars of discipline of perception, recognize your power, steady your nerves, and also the preface and the intro to the book, obviously. But we're going to keep the train rolling. And if any of those are jumping out to you as curious and you're just joining us for the first time, feel free to go back to the other videos to get a full scope of what we're talking about because I don't want you to be shortchanged. So, the next pillar is control your emotions. This may be potentially conceived as similar to steady your nerves. However, we're talking more of a general theme, a general practice, kind of like discipline is perception. This is a process, and this is something that we are trying to learn. And we will begin with me reading just a little bit. So, when people panic, they make mistakes. They override systems. They disregard procedures, ignore rules. They deviate from the plan. They become unresponsive and stop thinking clearly. They just react, not to what they need to react to, but to survive this. But the survival hormones that are coursing through their veins. Welcome to the source of most of our problems down here on Earth. Everything is planned down to the letter. Then something goes wrong, and the first thing we do is trade our plan in for the good old emotional freakout. Some of us almost crave sounding the alarm because it's easier than dealing with whatever they're staring in the face. Oh, so Ryan is going to punch you in the face a little bit with something as well too. But let me do just a quick recap on that. Welcome to most of the problems down here on Earth are due to people that do not have the discipline to control their emotions and they allow kind of the moment to get to them. They freak out. And then he goes on to say, with a little bit of audacity, that some people almost crave sounding the alarm because it's easier than facing what they are dealing with. Whew, that's a heavy hitting statement. But Ryan likes to do that, and I like him for that. So, uncertainty and fear are relieved by authority. Training is authority, and it is a release valve. So basically, what this is saying is that through the practice and training of being able to control your emotions, you're able to take and deal with uncertainty and fear much more adequately. And this is true for most military and most sport things, and for job as well too. They're trying to eliminate the emotions out of all of the action that you need to do. That way, you obviously just need to act. Now, it's not simple as that, obviously, because life is emotional, but I think it's a good place to begin. So, in comparison to John Glenn, who is the first astronaut in space, life is no different. Wait, I may have just turned us on to. Okay, thank you for bearing with me there. So, John Glenn, the first American astronaut to orbit the Earth, spent nearly a day in space, still keeping his heart rate under 100 beats per minute. That's a man not simply at the controls, but in control of his emotions. A man who properly cultivated what Tim Wolfe would later recall the right stuff. And essentially, what they're talking about is his training regimen at NASA was so deliberate and so thought out that when he was actually in the moment, he was able to flip a switch and get into the habit and get into the protocols that he was needing to do. Now, we're not going to be going up in space. Maybe we will. Elon, you never know if he's going to get us there or not. But life is really no different when it comes to being able to handle emotional regulation. So, obstacles make us emotional, but the only way we survive or overcome them is by making or keeping our emotions in check. If we can keep steady, no matter what happens, no matter how much external events may fluctuate, and the Greeks had a word for this, and I'm not going to pronounce it. You can read this chapter, but essentially it is being able to have the freedom from disturbance and just that kind of rush of emotion. So let me flip back to the remarkable here just to see if I had missed anything. Okay. So I've kind of jumped around a little bit on this portion, and forgive me for that, but I want to make sure that I'm driving home some good points. So After we talked a little bit about just John Glenn and being able to go into space and kind of relying on training and protocols to relieve and use the release valve on our emotions so we can control them better, does getting upset provide you with more options? Is the hard question posed. And that's a beautiful question because it is rhetorical in some sense, saying that it really does not. Sometimes it does, but most times it does not. So just to kind of round out this pillar, I'll do a little bit of reading here. So no one said anything about not feeling it, right? No one said you can't ever cry, forget manliness. If you need to take a moment, by all means, go ahead, right? So this is a really good pause on the break here. So we're saying we can't shut off emotions completely, right? Everyone feels them. And if you need to take a moment, go ahead and take a moment. However, real strength lies in our control or the domestication of one's emotions, not pretending they don't exist. What a great word to expand upon. As you domesticate an animal so that it is not an animal and not as impulsive as it would be in the wild, so too do we need to do that with our emotions, meaning we have very, very good honed in control of them. So go ahead, feel it. Just don't lie to yourself about conflating emotions about the problem and dealing with it, because they are as different as sleeping and walking. You can always remind yourself, I am in control, not my emotions. I see what's really going on here. I'm not going to get excited or upset. We defeat emotions with logic, or at least that's the idea. Logic is a question, our logic is questions and statements. With enough of them, we get to root causes. We lost money, but aren't losses pretty common part of business? Yes. Are these losses catastrophic? No, not necessarily. So this is not totally unexpected, is it? How could that be so bad? So essentially, this is an inner dialogue that he's having here. And just to do a quick repeat on that, so we're running a business. We lost money. Well, aren't most, or isn't that a pretty common part of business? Yes, it is. And are these losses catastrophic? No, not necessarily. Okay. So this is the internal dialogue you could potentially have. And to really kind of maybe take that and twist it into a competition, or excuse me, if you're going to compete, if you're going to leverage this in a different way or a different life situation, it's kind of knowing the flare up is going to happen and talking to yourself saying, okay, there's been a flare up. There's been some emotions in the meeting. The meeting isn't quite going as I want it to. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to regain composure, and I'm going to valiantly head right back in to handle the obstacle. So one tool is having a conversation with yourself, as we've talked about, and asking great questions. Will I die from this? Is anger the best thing for the situation? Am I in control? And can I become in control? So really, with the larger general pillar of trying to control your emotions as a way to defeat obstacles, we are also trying to leverage question asking to take us from here to get us down to here to kind of get us thinking straight. So I really like this chapter, only because I'm an overthinker at heart. And when you overthink, you play out situations in your head that aren't even real. And so asking yourself these questions can really get you grounded and calmed back down. So hopefully you enjoyed reading that pillar and chapter. We're going to keep reading and get on to the next video.